Three. Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Grady Batista with Triple Z Resale coming at you with the very first What's Sold on eBay video of Season 2. I'm so excited to give you this video because we have a lot of good stuff to show you. Because instead of doing a weekly What's Sold video where it's just what's sold in the last week, this is going to be the best of what's sold in the past 3 or 4 months. And we've got a lot of great stuff. I sold a lot of really good consignment items for my consignment sellers. I've sold antiques, collectibles, clothing, a bunch of different stuff. And I'm going to show you the most interesting things, not necessarily the most valuable, not necessarily the most modern, but I'm going to show you the things that I want to talk about. And I think that you as a collector or as a vintage fan or as another eBay reseller, you'll enjoy these items. So enjoy this video. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the like button. First up today is a hand-colored art print from 1775. This is the oldest item I have ever sold on eBay, and I really enjoyed it. I had it hanging up on my kitchen wall until it sold, which is the nice thing about selling art, is that to keep it safe, a wall is a very good place to keep it. So coming up, I have a video I took before I shipped it out of this item, and this will tell you more about it. All I'm going to say before I show you that video is that I was told this is going in a museum to General Montgomery by and the buyer was a person who plays General Montgomery for General Montgomery Day every year in the village of Hudson in the New York Hudson Valley. So here it is, up close and personal. Check out this amazing piece of vintage art. All right, this is an original art print by Francois Xavier Habermann, who lived between 1721 and 1796. He was a German illustrator, and he made many illustrations of what was going on in the New World during the Revolutionary times. So let me zoom in a little bit. We'll see this is the Siege of Quebec. The title on these prints is printed like a mirror flip version of it, and that was true of all the things in the Collection des Prospects. So this was a specific collection of illustrations. This piece was made, as far as I can tell, between 1775 and 1780. This particular one shows the Siege of Quebec. You can see there it has both French and German at the bottom. And this is a hand. There's the signature of the artist. So this is a hand-colored print. So it's not an original work of art in the sense of it being purely an original hand drawing, but it is an original hand-colored print. You can see the blue sky there. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. So you can see it's flaked off a little bit there. The hand applied paint towards the edge. But I believe if you go back and study Quebec, you will recognize some of the streetways and things like that. So you have to remember, there was no photographs back then, and news traveled very, very slowly. So things that were happening over here on the North American continent, it took an entire boat ride back to Europe before news could get there. So what was happening is that people in Europe were very interested for the gossip from the New World, just like we are today. We want entertainment news, right? So this was the entertainment news of the day. What's happening in the New World? So what would happen is that stories would come back from the New World, and these illustrators who worked for, you know, the equivalent of newspapers of the day, they would draw these fictional drawings of what they believed was happening in the New World. So like this illustration was based on stories and based on basically the memory of people who were there to see the Siege of Quebec. And so this is a quasi-fictional, quasi-historical representation, but nonetheless, it is a very old and very amazing piece. My brother-in-law got it at an estate sale here in Tucson, Arizona, and we sold it to this gentleman for $375 plus shipping. Thanks for checking it out. All right, next up was a very exciting item to sell. I went to an estate sale about 2 months ago. It was the last sale I went to that day. It was a Friday estate sale. It was the first day of their sale. I showed up about 11 o'clock, and as a lot of you know who go to estate sales or have estate sales, you know, all the really good stuff tends to sell early, so I was definitely late. I was definitely picking over, you know, the things that were left. And I found a box of knives in the kitchen and grabbed this one out of there. This was the only knife in there that really looked valuable. Everything else was just like random kitchen knives and steak knives and stuff that, you know, wasn't like really interesting. And this looked really, really old to me. And so, you know, I had a bunch of different stuff I was buying, so I kind of just made a deal for, you know, a bulk purchase. But basically, I paid very little for this item. I didn't really know what it was. It took me a little while to get it listed. And what I do with items like this, when I don't know exactly how old something is or how collectible or how rare or how unique, I trust that the marketplace will let me know if it's really valuable. So I put this up for auction. I started the auction at $22, and I knew something was going to happen with this because on the first day I already had bids and I had 12 people watching it. By the last day of the auction I had around 30 people watching it and I had a lot of bids. So, you know, about the last couple of days the bidding had gone up to about $90, which I was totally happy with. If this knife had sold for $90, I would have been perfectly fine with that. If I had listed it as a buy it now, I probably would have put like $100 with best offer. And as you can see here, towards the end of the listing, you can see there's 2 minutes left on this picture. So 2 minutes before the listing ended, or the auction ended, it was up to 113. And I was like, oh my God, that's so great. There's so many people watching this. I wonder what's going to happen in the last minutes of this auction, because ones like this tend to have bids at the very last second. So luckily I was out when this auction ended. I was in my truck, and so I sat there for a few minutes in a parking lot and I took some screenshots of the action. So what happened next is that in the last seconds it jumped up to $205 with you can see there 11 seconds left and 18 bids, and then at the very last second it jumped up to $264.90. So someone came in and sniped it at the last second, added another $65 of value, and this is the price that it sold for. So I'm going to show you a video coming up next showing you the knife. I filmed it before I sent it out because I know you people who are actually into learning about this and into really seeing the nitty-gritty of antique items and learning about them like I am, you want to see the video that's coming up. But what I will tell you is that I message the buyer. I don't normally message buyers, you know, about their items unless there's a reason to. But in this case, I just basically sent them a message and thanked them for their business and congratulated them on winning the auction. I said, I sell a lot of antiques and collectibles, but antique knives are not something that I know a whole lot about. I said, I could tell this item was very old. But would you care to share any information about what makes this knife so valuable and collectible? And they emailed me back right away, and they said that this knife was probably made between 1830 and 1840, probably made in Louisiana, and indicated it might have been made by the Bowie family, which is a really big deal because this is a Bowie knife. Jim Bowie was the dude who made the Bowie knife, who came up with that design. And they said that the Bowies had given a very similar knife to this one to a friend, and that knife was now on display at the Alamo Museum in Texas. And I also believe Jim Bowie was involved in some way in the Alamo, but that's a story for another time. So coming up next, you're going to see the video of this knife, and you're going to see a little news clip from the Alamo showing off some Bowie knives. And there is, in fact, in that video, a knife that looks very, very similar to this. Enjoy. It's super, super thick. And there's these lines here that you can see. And so what I'm seeing in this is that metal was folded over like in layers in order to thicken this part up and maybe have this part continue to be thin. I believe this was made by hand, like, you know, blacksmith style, like with hot iron and an anvil and a big hammer. And my guess, if I had to guess on the age of this, would be that it's like the late 1800s or early 1900s, like before 1920. It's a Bowie style blade, so I guess I could look up the history of that type of knife and maybe I'd have a better idea of where it came from or what it's all about. But it's in pretty rough condition. And
will mark the 181st anniversary of the fall of the Alamo. As usual, plenty of activities are taking place to commemorate the historic event. But if you plan on visiting the Alamo tomorrow, you're going to find a new exhibit. Justin Horn gives us a sneak peek inside Jim Bowie, man, knife, legend.
Kind of amazing, isn't it? This knife has been famous since 1827.
Legendary, in fact. Used in an infamous brawl in Natchez, Mississippi, both the knife and its namesake would become household names.
Ever since then, Jim Bowie was famous and his knife was famous with him.
Bowie, of course, would then make his way to defend the Alamo, his legacy and the legacy of his weapon of choice cemented in the history books.
Even now, the Jim Bowie knife, the Bowie knife resonates in pop culture. You see it in Indiana Jones. You see it in Crocodile Dundee and Rambo. You even see it in Rise of the Tomb Raider for Lara Croft. So it's a knife that became iconic in 1827 and remains iconic now.
All of it chronicled in a new exhibit called Bowie, Man, Knife, Legend, set to open at the Alamo.
This exhibit will walk you through the life and times of Jim Bowie. Why did he and his brother move to Texas in 1830, for instance? Who did they meet along the way? Where did he get his knives?
In addition to that history, you'll also find plenty of technology to help tell the story.
This exhibit is interactive. Check it out. You can see the actual artifact, but by using this touchscreen, you can see details you might have otherwise missed.
Set to open Saturday, look for the exhibit to continue through the end of the year.
this is an item that's sold on eBay, also at auction, for a very high price. The listing is older than 3 months, so it doesn't show up on eBay anymore. I'm not able to show you the listing, but I did go back and grab my photos that I used on eBay so you can see the mask. This was a consignment item I sold for one of my consignment sellers. They were incredibly happy with me and how much this sold for. They gave me a collection of about 6 or 7 masks that they actually found at a thrift store, sitting outside in the weather, like not being taken care of, and I believe she paid something like $1/4 per mask. So I managed to sell all of the masks on eBay in a matter of a month, and I think 4 of them sold at auction, and then a couple of others I sold at buy it now prices. But this one was the highest price, the best price, so I'm going to show you this one only. This is a Mexican folk art mask, probably from the 30s or 40s. And this type of mask is involved in a specific holiday. There's a holiday, and I don't know the name of it, and I didn't want to spend 20 minutes to research it, so I apologize. I don't know the name of this holiday. I do know that at the Tucson Art Museum, there was a display of similar masks from this Mexican holiday, where people wear masks of all different types and different styles as a celebration. And so this particular mask sold for just over $400. It had many, many bids, and again, it went up at the very last second, went up above $400. It sold to someone in where was it? In Taos, New Mexico, and it's probably hanging in a really cool house full of cool, interesting looking stuff like this. So again, you just never know. If you're out there scavenging and you see old stuff like this, you should definitely grab it and try and sell it, because this mask was quite valuable, and I think altogether that collection of 6 masks sold for about $600. So not bad for something that cost $1.50 to buy at a thrift store. And big thanks to my consignment seller for giving me these great items. I really enjoyed selling them. Next up is a collection of 4 Frederick McDuff signed, numbered art prints. He is a well-known oil painter, and his items do sell well. There is a track record on eBay and other more fancier auction sites of his art selling. So one of my consignment sellers gave me a lot of art. And so I had 4 of these. So let me show you. There's this one. There's this one. That. And that. So you can see that they're all kind of in a theme. So I listed them individually. I initially tried to sell them at auction, all 4 as a set. I auctioned it a few times, didn't get any bites, so figured the best way to sell them would be just to sell them individually. And, art sells slowly on eBay. It's not oftentimes something that sells right away, but that's okay because I'm patient and my consignment seller is patient. They understand they have valuable items and that it's going to take time to find the right buyer. So one day out of the blue, I got a best offer on one of them, and it was from a woman, and it was a fairly low offer. It was less than 50% of the sales price. You can see I had them listed at $535 with a sale running, and she offered us less than half of that. But she offered to buy all 4. She said, I can pay you this amount per painting and plus shipping, and would you sell all 4 of these? And so I talked to my consignment seller, and he wanted me to make a counter offer, which I did. So I made a counter offer, which wasn't for too much more money per painting. I think we were asking like $50 or $75 more per painting from her original offer, and she declined it. She declined the offer, which was kind of a big deal because we're looking at a sale around $1,000 here. So I had permission to take her original offer. We just wanted to see if we could get a little bit more money. So this is one of those times where as a seller you have to be proactive. So what I did is I managed to find her seller account, and luckily eBay has a contact this person button. Otherwise I would have really been sunk, because once someone declines your counteroffer, there's no way on eBay to communicate with that person any further. You can't go back and send them a new offer. So I was able just to send her a message through eBay. And I said, hey, I hope you weren't offended by our counteroffer. The owner of these paintings wanted me to make a counteroffer to you to try and get a little bit more money. But we would be happy to sell you these for the original price you wanted. Are you still interested? And she replied back right away. She said, yes, I'm definitely still interested. She's like, no, I wasn't offended. That's just the most I could pay for them. She said, I have 4 Frederick McDuff paintings in my collection, and I'm trying to buy these for my brother. He really likes my paintings, and so I want to send these to him as a birthday present. And so I thought that was so sweet, and what a nice sister, and what a lucky brother to receive 4 pieces of original signed art. And so I said, okay, great, here, and make me an offer. I said, remake me the original offer, and we'll accept it. I sent her the links to each of the 4 listings. So I'm trying to really provide that customer service to make it really easy for that buyer to accept these offers, because sometimes eBay is hard to navigate through. And so we made the deal. She bought them. She paid for them. I offered that I could send them directly to her brother, and I walked her through the process of changing her address before she bought them, so that we didn't have any problems and I was still covered by eBay seller protection and stuff. So she paid around $800 for all 4 of these paintings. I packed them all up in one box and very carefully packed them securely and got them out on the way to her brother. She left me positive feedback on all of them, and it was a win for everyone. I made good money. My consignment seller made good money. He'd bought these at an estate sale, and so I think in the end, after everything was said and done, I think he doubled his investment on these, which was great. He was happy with that, and everyone won. So this was a good sale. This is a vintage Effanbee brand googly eye doll. And if you're not familiar with these, Effanbee is a brand. So that's actually what made this valuable, was that the doll was made by this doll maker. It's a composition is the material. So it's kind of like an early plastic or something similar to plastic. And the googly eye part is that when the doll is laying down, the eyes are shut. When the doll is sitting up, the eyes are open. So that's why they call it a googly eye. and this was their certain type of doll that was made. Let me show you the different pictures here. You doll people out there, you know all this stuff already. I had a learning experience to learn about dolls, and now I'm kind of educated. I have similar dolls for sale, but this was the nicest one. You can see there was a little damage there to the top of the head, where the composition material was cracking a little bit, and same thing, the hands had a little bit of damage. But the nice thing about this doll is that it had this really nice hand crocheted hat. It had original period clothing items. I don't know if these were the original ones that came with the doll or not, but either way, they're period correct, and it's in very good condition. You can see the clothing doesn't have stains. You can see that the eyes work correctly like they're supposed to. So a very nice doll. This was another consignment item. You can see I'm selling a lot of things on consignment for other people. I'm looking to grow that end of my business, so if you have things you want to sell, please get in touch with me. And this sold for $70 plus shipping, or $69.95 plus shipping. I guess I should be more specific and accurate. This is a piece of jewelry handmade by my mother-in-law, who is an expert jeweler and has a very good eye for picking out quality materials. So the pendant came from an estate sale. And then the other materials probably came from the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. So not an expensive sale. You could see it sold for $39.95. But she was very happy, to get her cut of that. And it was a good sale. And it's a very pretty necklace with a cool Roadrunner Southwestern motif on it. This is an Arita Amari stackable 4-piece serving bowl. And so you can see here it has 3 different sections, and then a beautiful lid. It has this amazing peacock design on it. I am such a fan of this china. I mean, it's not like the most valuable china in the world or anything like that, but I just think that this pattern is really, really pretty. It is made in Japan, and while a lot of it is printed on, there are always hand-painted elements to the Arita china, and pieces will look slightly different. So there's a little bit of variety, which I always enjoy. That's part of the unique nature of these things. So I think originally I was trying to sell this for $70, and just because it was so unique and it was the only one out there. But the fact of the matter is, I can't have china sitting around in my storage forever. And after about a year, I was ready to make deals on this stuff, so I had been lowering the price. As you can see, I had it listed at $23.96. I believe I took a best offer of $20 because that same buyer also bought this matching casserole dish from the same China series, and so they offered me $20 a piece for each of them. I took it, and I was happy to see them go. These were the last pieces of the Arita china. I probably sold about $500 worth of this china total. I bought a huge set of it and I pieced it out. I sold a serving of 8 for almost $300, and then everything else I sold individually, and I finally have sold all of it. It took a year, but I probably paid somewhere around $75 for all of it and turned it around for about $500 in the end. So I'm very happy with that. That was a good sale for me. All right. I bought on the Goodwill auction site, I bought a collection of vintage political pins. And so I got a whole bunch of these Nixon pins, 25 of them. I didn't want to sell them individually because they're worth like a couple bucks a piece. So I just sold them as a lot. I had a collector buy them. And then he messaged me later and thanked me, for the pins. And he was looking for this one specific Richard Nixon pin and wanted to know if I had it. And of course I don't. I'm not like specifically a pin collector. But it was nice. I always enjoy those exchanges with buyers and collectors. This is a vintage Umco aluminum tackle box from the 1940s. This was not a very valuable item. I think I took a best offer of $25, but I'm showing it to you just because it's really neat. It's made of aluminum. It has these fold-out shelves in it for holding all your tackle. I believe I bought this for $5 at a yard sale. And the guy had a ton of fishing stuff. He was like a big fishing guy. So that was neat. This is a vintage baby potato head doll from 1977. As far as I know, this was the first African-American doll made by Potato Head, or, you know, made as part of the Potato Head line. So what makes this a unique item is that this was only made for 1 year. And what this doll was designed for, because you can see it doesn't have the shape of like the traditional Potato Head dolls. So this doll was made as a way to teach children how to tie their shoes, how to use a zipper, how to use buttons, and how to use buckles. So it was like a learning doll to teach children like basically how to like deal with all the different parts of their clothing that you have to do. And it also was important because as you know, if you know much about dolls and toys, they were mostly white people dolls. And so to have African-American dolls being introduced was very important. You know, we have to represent all the diversity of America with our products. And so this was an early one. And I bought a whole box of dolls and teddy bears at a yard sale. And this was the most valuable of those. So I had it listed at $65. I took a best offer of $50, and it sold to a toy collector. So hopefully it's sitting in his collection on a shelf somewhere. All right, this item I grabbed out of the bins at the Goodwill outlet. I could tell right away it was very old just from the leather and the type of materials that were on it. I could tell it was very old. After I got it home and doing some research, I learned that it was a Swiss Army bag, that it was basically World War II era, and that these are worth anywhere between $25 to a couple $100. This one's not in very good condition, and some of the features are not quite as fancy as some of the other Swiss Army bags. So nonetheless, I think I had to run it at auction 3 times, and I kept getting messages from people saying, if this doesn't sell at auction, I'll buy it from you for $25. And so I just kept putting it up for auction, and eventually someone bid. I know it says it has 3 bids, but really it basically was 3 bids from the same buyer, which unfortunately tells me that they were willing to pay more than $25 for it, but nobody else bid against them, so the price never went up. And it's a cool item though, and they sent me a message asking me to please pack it carefully, that they didn't want any damage, and I just thought it was funny because like this bag is so durable that like I could have shipped it with no packaging and it would have made it there just fine. But either way, I packed it very carefully like they requested, and it was an interesting sale of a vintage item. All right, now here's something a little more contemporary. This is kind of from my childhood era. I was at a thrift store with my friend. We were out doing some shopping, and went to a thrift store I'd never been to. They didn't have a bunch of great stuff. This was the only item I bought. I paid $1 for it. I got it listed. I listed it for $34.95. I got an offer that day for $15, plus the buyer's going to pay shipping. And, I was happy to get $15 for it on the first day, and I took that offer, even though it was, less than 50% of what I was hoping to get for it. Sometimes I will be happy to have that quick sale, because who knows, I might still have this Chuck E. Cheese mug sitting around in my shed waiting for someone to buy it today. And instead I sold it immediately. So, yay for... All right, this is an Oneida Satin Remedy Community Stainless Flatware 24-piece service for 4 set of flatware. So basically, this is a vintage item, like late 90s or early 2000s, and it's new in the box, and they don't make this this pattern anymore. So that's part of why I had it listed at $75, is just because it's rare, and no one had this set for sale on eBay. The only things for sale on eBay that were the satin remedy of this pattern was people selling individual pieces, and they were selling individual pieces for about $5 per fork or $5 per knife or spoon. So I think to sell 24 for 75 was a pretty good price. Someone made me a best offer of $50 plus shipping, and I took it. And this was another consignment item from a friend's parents who have a bunch of stuff that they were getting rid of. So rather than donate it, they let me pick through it. I took out a bunch of stuff, and they're making money. I just wrote them a check yesterday, and they were very happy. So let's see, is there anything else? This one. Okay. This was a fun one. I bought this at a yard sale when I was up in Phoenix. It's just a really fun coffee pot. Coffee maketh bright the spirit. And it's got this beautiful rooster. It's hand painted. It's signed. And it has this cool sort of like European, maybe vintage 70s look to it. And I figure this is probably a decor piece. This is probably something that someone's going to put on a shelf or, like in some kind of little nook in their house somewhere. It has some damage. Like, it's really been used a lot. It's got, definitely has some damage to it. But just a really cool piece. And I thought it would be fun to show it to you. So this sold for $19.95 plus shipping. All right, this is going to conclude our What Sold on eBay video. Thank you so much for staying with me. I know this was kind of a long one, but I had a lot of stuff to show off, and I had a lot of things to explain. I will be making more What Sold on eBay videos. You can look forward to one at least every week or two. And again, I am looking to grow my consignment business. So if the types of things I'm selling are the types of things you need to sell, please contact me. I would love to do some business with you, even if you're out of state or you're somewhere else in America. We can definitely get your items shipped here to our location and get them listed on eBay for you. So to everyone else, have a great day. All you collectors out there, go find your treasures. All you sellers, I hope you have a good day selling items wherever your marketplace is. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Hey, did you hear he was making more videos? That was for the last one. Ow! Uh-oh. How unfortunate. We're gonna be in a video. I'm so excited! Oh, he got the boo-boo. You got boo-boo. You got boo-boo. Hey, so... I'm with my cat right now. He's so cool. I love him. That's all I have to say.